know that feeling when something's just off? Like when you walk into a room and you swear someone was just there, but it's empty. That's how I felt for 3 months straight living in my apartment. And I'm not talking about some creepy old house with a history. This was a modern building in downtown Chicago, built in 2018. Clean, safe, normal. At least, that's what I thought. My name's Jake, and I'm a software developer. 28, pretty logical guy. I don't believe in ghosts or any of that supernatural stuff. But what happened in my apartment building, I still can't explain it. And honestly, I don't want to. So me and my girlfriend Sarah moved into this place last September. 3rd floor, Unit 3A. Nice 1-bedroom. Decent rent for the area. The building's got 12 units total for floors. Nothing fancy but clean and modern. Our floor just had 2 apartments. Us in 3A and Mrs. Chun, this sweet elderly lady, in 3C. Simple layout, right? The first weird thing happened about a week after we moved in. I'm working from home. Sarah's at her job at the marketing firm, and there's a knock on the door. I open it, and there's this delivery guy holding a bag from some Thai place. "Order for 3B, he says. I look at him like he's crazy. Dude, there's no 3B, just 3A and 3C. He checks his phone, shows me the screen. Sure enough, it says 3B, our address, our building. He's confused. I'm confused. I tell him to try Mrs. Chun in 3C. Maybe she ordered it and put the wrong apartment number. But when I knock on her door, she says she didn't order anything. The delivery guy just shrugs, takes the food back, says it happens sometimes with new buildings. Old address data gets mixed up in the system. Made sense to me, but then it kept happening. Over the next few weeks, we got mail for 3B, utility bills, junk mail, even a jury duty summons, all addressed to 3B at our building. I just marked them, returned to sender, no such address, and dropped them back in the mailbox. Sarah thought it was funny at first. Maybe 3B is like platform 9 and 3/4, she'd joke. You gotta run at the wall between our apartments. But it was getting annoying. The building manager, this guy Dave, said the same thing as the delivery driver. Probably just database errors from when they registered the building. He'd get it sorted out. Then the packages started coming. Amazon deliveries, FedEx, UPS, all for 3B. The delivery drivers would just leave them in our hallway, since they couldn't find the actual apartment. Dave told us to just refuse them or mark them as undeliverable, but honestly, it was becoming a daily thing. The weird part was the stuff being ordered. I mean, I couldn't help but peek at some of the labels. Baby clothes, diapers, a crib from IKEA prenatal vitamins. Like someone was preparing for a baby. Sarah and I talked about it one night over dinner. Maybe it's someone who used to live here, she suggested. Like, they moved but forgot to update their address on some accounts. But this building's brand new, I said. We're literally the first tenants. She shrugged. Probably just someone who fat-fingered their apartment number when setting up accounts. Happens all the time. That made sense. I mean, what else could it be? Things got weirder in November. Sarah was working late, so I was home alone, binge-watching Netflix, when someone knocked on the door around 10 p.m. I looked through the peephole, and there's this woman I don't recognize. Mid-30s, brown hair, wearing a delivery uniform from one of those food apps. She's holding a bag and looking around the hallway like she's lost. I open the door. "Can I help you?" "Yeah, hi, I'm looking for 3B. I've got a DoorDash order." "There's no 3B. I tell her, "Just 3A, that's me, and 3C down there." She checks her phone, frowning. "That's weird. The customer said to leave it at the door if no one answered. I knocked on 3B, but..." She trails off, looking confused. 3B doesn't exist. I say again. Maybe they meant 3A or 3C. But she's shaking her head. "No, I definitely knocked on 3B. The door was there, between your apartment and the other one. And someone answered." I felt this chill run down my spine. What do you mean, someone answered? This woman. She looked really wet, like she'd just gotten out of the shower or something. Hair all dripping. She took the food and paid cash. I'm staring at her now. Ma'am, there's no door between 3A and 3C. Look. I step out into the hallway and point. Our door, then a long stretch of wall with some framed generic art prints. Then Mrs. Chen's door at the other end. No 3B. The delivery woman looks where I'm pointing, and her face goes white. But she was right there. I handed her the food. She's backing away now, clutching her phone. This is really weird. I gotta go. And she just left. Practically ran to the elevator. I stood in that hallway for a long time, just staring at the wall between our apartments. Just a regular wall. Paint, some cheap artwork, nothing else. When Sarah got home, I told her what happened. She was skeptical, obviously. Maybe the delivery woman was confused, she said. Wrong building, wrong floor. Those apps glitch all the time. But the next morning, there was a DoorDash receipt taped to our door. Order for 3B. Paid in cash. $23 and change for Thai food. Sarah couldn't explain that one away. We started paying more attention after that. Mrs. Chun mentioned she'd been hearing weird sounds at night. Footsteps in the hallway. Doors opening and closing. But when she'd peek out, the hallway was always empty. Maybe it's just the building settling, she said. You know how these new places are. But she looked worried when she said it. I started taking pictures of the hallway every few days. I don't know why exactly. Maybe I want to document that there really was no 3B in case more delivery people showed up claiming they'd seen it. The wall between our apartments was always the same. Just wall. Until it wasn't. This was early December. Sarah was at her office Christmas party, and I was home working on a project. When I heard something that made me look up from my laptop, crying. Not loud, but definitely there. A woman crying, and it was coming from the direction of the wall between our apartment and Mrs. Chen's. I put my ear to the wall and listened. Yeah, someone was definitely crying on the other side. Soft, muffled sobs. I figured maybe Mrs. Chen was upset about something. She'd been acting strange lately, more nervous, jumpier. Maybe she was having a tough time. So I went to check on her. But when Mrs. Chen answered her door, she looked fine. A little confused why I was asking if she was okay. I thought I heard crying. I said, "Crying? No, I've been watching TV all evening. Are you feeling all right, Jake?" I went back to my apartment, but I could still hear it. Faint crying coming from inside the wall. That's when I noticed something I'd never seen before. The wallpaper. Our apartment came with this generic beige wallpaper in the living room. Nothing fancy, just standard rental stuff. But now, looking at the wall that faced the hallway, I could see a seam in the paper, a vertical line running from floor to ceiling, about 6 feet from our front door. And next to it, another vertical line maybe 3 feet away, like there was a rectangle outlined in the wallpaper. A rectangle about the size of a door. My hands were shaking as I got closer to examine it. The seam was barely visible, but it was definitely there. Someone had papered over something. I called Sarah. "You need to come home," I said. "What's wrong? You sound weird." "Just, can you come home? Now." Sarah thought I was losing it when I showed her the seam in the wallpaper. "Jake, it's just where they join 2 pieces of wallpaper. That's how wallpaper works." But I convinced her to help me peel back a corner, just to see what was underneath. The wallpaper came away easily, like it had been put up recently. And underneath was a door, not a full door. The frame was there, but it had been sealed up with drywall and painted over. You could see where someone had mudded and sanded it, try and make it look like a regular wall, but they'd done a sloppy job. Once the wallpaper was off, it was obvious. Sarah just stared at it. "What the hell?" There was a door here, I said. 3B. There really was a 3B. We spent the next hour peeling off all the wallpaper from that section of wall. The whole door frame was there, sealed up but clearly visible, and in the bottom right corner. Someone had written something in pencil before they sealed it up. For Emma, March 3rd, 1999. Sarah Googled the date while I examined the sealed door frame. Jake, she said, her voice strange. March 3rd, 1999. There was a news article. She showed me her phone. A brief story from the Chicago Tribune archives. Woman dies in apparent suicide. A 24-year-old woman died yesterday after jumping from the roof of an apartment building under construction in downtown Chicago. The woman, identified as Emma Hartwell, was reportedly 7 months pregnant. Construction on the building was halted following the incident. Our building, Emma Hartwell, had jumped from the roof of our building while it was still being constructed in 1999, 24 years ago. But that doesn't make sense, Sarah said. This building was built in 2018. I saw the construction myself. I Googled our address with construction and 1999. More articles came up. Apparently, they'd started building our apartment complex in 1998, but construction was halted after Emma's death. Legal issues, safety concerns, bad publicity. The half-finished building sat empty for almost 20 years before a new developer bought the land and finished it. So this door, Sarah said, was sealed up before they finished construction the first time. I finished, and when they renovated, they just left it sealed. But that didn't explain the packages, the deliveries, the crying, or what we found when we opened it. It took us 3 days to work up the courage to break through the drywall. Sarah wanted to call the building manager, but I talked her out of it. What are we going to say? Hey, Dave, we found a sealed up door and we think it's haunted. We used a crowbar I borrowed from Mrs. Chun, told her we were hanging some heavy artwork. The drywall came away in chunks, revealing a dark space behind it. Not an apartment, a crawl space, maybe 5 feet deep, just wide enough for a person to stand in. And hanging from the ceiling was a single bare light bulb on a cord. Sarah grabbed my arm. Jake, don't. But I had to see. I pulled the cord. The light flickered on, and I wished it hadn't. The back wall of the crawl space was covered in names. Dozens of them, carved into the drywall with something sharp. Some deep, some shallow, some in block letters, some in cursive. And at the bottom, in letters bigger than the rest, Emma Hartwell, March 3rd, 1999. Below that, and baby makes 3. Sarah was crying now. We need to call someone. The police. The building manager. Someone. But I was looking at the other names. Sarah Martinez. Jennifer Wu. Lisa Thompson. Names I didn't recognize, but they were carved with the same desperate intensity as Emma's. Sarah, I said, get Dave on the phone. Right now. Dave came up within an hour. When he saw the crawl space, his face went pale. Jesus Christ, he said. How long has this been here? That's what we're asking you, Sarah said. Dave got on his phone, calling the building owner, the construction company, anyone who might have records. It took a few hours, but he eventually came back with answers we didn't want to hear. Okay, so here's what I found out, he said, sitting heavily on our couch. The original building plan from 1998 showed this unit as 3B. It was supposed to be a studio apartment. Supposed to be? I asked. When they halted construction after the incident, this unit was only half finished. No bathroom, no kitchen, just a room with some electrical. When the new developers took over in 2017, they decided it was too small to be a legal apartment. So they sealed it up and redistributed the space to 3A and 3C. But why didn't they just tear out the walls? Sarah asked. Dave shifted uncomfortably. Cost cutting. Easier to just seal it up and pretend it never existed. What about the building directory? The official records? That's the thing, Dave said. Legally, 3B doesn't exist. It's not on any current building plans, not in the city records, not in our rental database. As far as everyone's concerned, it was never there. But it was there. We were standing in front of it. Dave, I said, how many names are carved in that wall? He counted them while Sarah and I were in the kitchen making coffee. 37. 37 names, including Emma Hartwell. What do you think they represent? Sarah asked. Dave didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was quiet. I think, he said, that every time someone lived in this building, they found this space, and they left their mark. But we're the first tenants, I said. You're the first official tenants, Dave corrected. But this building sat empty for 20 years. A lot can happen in 20 years. That night, neither Sarah nor I could sleep. We'd sealed the crawl space back up with some plywood Dave brought over. But knowing it was there, it was like having a time bomb in our living room. Around 3 a.m., Sarah sat up in bed. The power bill, she said. What? All those packages for 3B. All that mail. Someone's been getting utility bills sent here. She got up and went to the kitchen, where we've been keeping all the misdelivered mail in a box. Bills, flyers, catalogs, all addressed to 3B. Jake, she said, her voice shaking. Look at this. She handed me an electric bill. Commonwealth Edison. Address, 3B, our building. Account holder, Emma Hartwell. The bill was dated last month. That's impossible, I said. She died in 1999. But there it was. Emma Hartwell, 3B, account active since 1998. Monthly usage, minimal but consistent. Like someone was just running a single light bulb. Sarah was flipping through the other mail. Jake, they're all here. All the bills. Phone, electric, gas. All in Emma's name. All active accounts. My phone rang. Unknown number. Don't answer it, Sarah said. But I did. Hello? I said. Silence. Then, very faintly, a woman's voice. Is this 3B? I hung up immediately. The phone rang again. Same number. This time, I let it go to voicemail. The message was just breathing. Slow, labored breathing, like someone who'd been running or crying. We stayed up all night, sitting on the couch, staring at the plywood we'd used to cover the crawl space entrance. Around 5 a.m., we heard it, scratching, coming from behind the plywood. Sarah grabbed my hand. Someone's in there. The scratching got louder, frantic, like someone tried to claw their way out. Then a voice, muffled but clearly audible. Please, let me out. A woman's voice, young, scared. My baby. I need to find my baby. Sarah was crying again. Jake, we have to do something. But what could we do? Call the police? Tell them we had a dead woman trapped in our wall? The scratching stopped suddenly. Then we heard footsteps. In the hallway. I looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty, but I could hear the footsteps, getting closer to our door. And then a knock. 3 soft knocks. Sarah and I just sat there, holding each other, not breathing. Another knock, more insistent this time. Then a voice right outside our door. I'm looking for 3B. I have a delivery. I looked through the peephole again. There was a woman standing there. Mid-20s, brown hair, wearing a maternity dress. Her hair was wet, dripping onto the floor. She was holding a baby. I'm looking for 3B, she said again. This is where I live. The woman from the peephole turned and looked directly at me. Even though there was no way she could see me through the peephole, she was looking right at me, and she smiled. I found it, she said. We moved out the next day, packed everything we could fit in Sarah's car, and drove to her sister's place in Milwaukee. Didn't even give Dave proper notice. He called a few days later, angry about us breaking the lease. But when I explained what happened, he went quiet. Jake, he said finally, you need to know something. What? After you guys left, I went back to check on the apartment. That crawl space you found. Yeah, it's not sealed anymore. The plywood's gone. And there's a light on in there. I hung up on him. That was 3 months ago. Sarah and I are living in Milwaukee now, in a nice house her sister helped us find. Normal house, built in the 1970s. Full records, no sealed doors, no missing apartments. But sometimes late at night, I still get calls from unknown numbers. When I answer, there's just breathing. And sometimes, very faintly, a woman's voice asking, "Is this 3B?" Last week, Sarah got a package delivered to our new address. From Amazon, baby clothes, size newborn. The delivery address on the label said 3B, followed by our old building's address in Chicago. But the shipping address, where it was sent from, was our current address in Milwaukee. We never ordered it. And here's the thing that keeps me up at night. We looked up Emma Hartwell's obituary from 1999. She was 24 when she died, 7 months pregnant. The baby was a girl. The baby clothes in the package were for a girl. And yesterday, I checked our power bill for our house in Milwaukee. Just out of curiosity, there are 2 active accounts at this address. Ours, and one for Emma Hartwell, apartment 3B. She's still paying for that light bulb. I don't know what happened in that building. I don't know if Emma Hartwell is really dead, or she's somehow still living in that crawl space, or if I'm just losing my mind. But I know this. Somewhere in Chicago, there's a light burning in an apartment that doesn't exist for a woman who died 24 years ago, and she's still waiting for her baby to come home. If you ever get a package or a phone call or a visitor asking for 3B, just tell them you don't know where it is. Trust me, you don't want to find out. I'm going to tell you something that happened to me 3 months ago, and I still can't sleep properly. I'm a freelance graphic designer. Nothing glamorous, just logos and website layouts for small businesses. The kind of work that keeps you up until 3 a.m. because clients always need just one more revision before their Monday deadline. I work from my studio apartment in Brooklyn. It's cramped, but the rent's cheap, and all I really need is my desk, my computer, and decent internet. At least, that's what I thought I needed. What I'm about to tell you started with something so small, so insignificant, that I almost didn't notice it. A tiny glitch during a video call. The kind of thing that happens every day to millions of people working from home. But here's the thing about glitches. Sometimes they're not glitches at all. It was a Tuesday night in September. I was on a Zoom call with a client, this uptight marketing manager named Brad, who insisted on micromanaging every pixel of his company's rebrand. We'd been going for about an hour, and I was getting that familiar headache from staring at his pasty face through my laptop screen. "Can you make the logo bigger?" he was saying for the 5th time. "I just feel like it needs more presence." I was nodding along, making mental notes about charging him extra for all these changes when I heard it, just barely audible underneath Brad's voice, a whisper. So faint I almost missed it. "Sarah, that's my name." But Brad hadn't said it. His mouth was moving, complaining about font choices, but underneath his voice was this other sound. Soft, female, desperate. I paused the screen share. "Sorry, Brad, did you say something?" "I was asking about the color palette," he said, looking annoyed. "Were you listening?" "Yeah, of course. I just thought I heard. Never mind. Technical difficulties." But I knew what I'd heard. Someone had whispered my name. The call ended around 11 p.m., and I chalked it up to internet lag, or maybe crosstalk from another call. You know how Zoom can be, audio cutting in and out, people talking over each other. It happens. Except it happened again the next night. I was on a call with another client, discussing mock-ups for a restaurant menu. Same thing. Halfway through conversation, I heard that whisper again, clearer this time. Sarah, please." My client kept talking, completely oblivious. I muted myself and listened carefully, but the voice was gone. Just Mark explaining why he wanted the font in Comic Sans, which, honestly, was more horrifying than any whisper. By Thursday, I was actively listening for it. 3 calls that day, and each time around the 45-minute mark, that voice would surface. Always female, always saying my name. And each time, it sounded a little more urgent. Sarah, don't. Don't what? Don't what? I started testing things. I'd record my Zoom calls, something I'd never bothered with before, and play them back afterward. The weird thing was, the whisper was clearer in the recordings. Like, whatever interference was causing it got stronger after the fact. On Friday night, I was reviewing a call from earlier that day, and I finally heard the full sentence. Sarah, don't answer the door. My blood went cold. I played it back 5 times to make sure. There it was, clear as day, layered underneath my client's voice like a ghost in the machine. Don't answer the door. I looked around my apartment. The front door was maybe 10 feet from my desk, secured with 3 different locks. The standard deadbolt, a chain, and one of those hotel-style security latches. I'd installed them all myself after moving in, because you can never be too careful living alone in the city. But why would some random audio glitch be telling me not to answer my door? The weekend came and went without any calls, so I had time to research. I spent hours on Reddit and tech forums, looking for explanations. Packet loss, audio compression artifacts, interference from other devices. There were dozens of potential causes for weird sounds during video calls, but none of them explained why the voice knew my name. Monday brought a new client, a nervous woman named Janet, who needed a flyer for her yoga studio. She had this habit of trailing off mid-sentence, so there were lots of natural pauses in our conversation, perfect opportunities to listen for the whisper. It came during one of those pauses. Janet had stopped talking to sip her tea, and in that moment of silence, I heard it. Sarah, he's watching. I jolted upright, so fast I knocked over my coffee mug. The hot liquid spread across my desk, and I scrambled to save my keyboard. Oh my goodness, are you okay? Janet asked. Fine, just clumsy. I lied, dabbing at the spill with a towel. Could you repeat what you just said? I was asking about the color scheme. Before that, did you say something about watching? Janet looked confused. Watching? No, I don't think so. Are you feeling all right, Sarah? After the call, I played back the recording immediately. The whisper was there, clearer than ever. Sarah, he's watching you sleep. My hands started shaking. I checked every window in my apartment, made sure the curtains were drawn tight. Who was watching me sleep? And how could a voice in my computer possibly know about it? That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the building settling, every footstep in the hallway above, made me sit up and listen. I kept thinking about that voice, the desperate quality of it, like someone trying to warn me but unable to speak louder than a whisper. Tuesday's calls were worse. The voice was getting stronger, more insistent. Sarah, don't let him in. Sarah, he has a key. Sarah, behind you. That last one made me spin around in my chair, heart hammering. Nothing there, of course. Just my unmade bed and the bathroom door standing slightly ajar. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. During calls, I started positioning my laptop so I could see the reflection of the room behind me in the black screen border. Paranoid, maybe, but it made me feel slightly less exposed. Wednesday night changed everything. I was working late, finishing up a logo for a hardware store, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Who calls at 2:43 a.m.? But something made me pick up. Hello. Silence. Then, in a voice that was unmistakably mine, my exact tone, my inflection, my slight Brooklyn accent, I heard, "Don't let him in." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, hands trembling. That was my voice. Not similar to mine. Not close. It was exactly my voice, saying the same words the whisper had been repeating for days. That's when my doorbell rang. The sound cut through the silence like a knife. One long, deliberate press of the button, followed by silence. I sat frozen at my desk, staring at the door. It was nearly 3 a.m. No one rings doorbells at 3 a.m. unless something's seriously wrong. The bell rang again, longer this time. I crept toward the door, avoiding the floorboards I knew would creak. Through the peephole, I could see the hallway, but no one was there. Just a dim emergency lighting casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. "Who is it?" I called out. Nothing. I checked the locks. All three were secured. But as I stood there listening, I heard something that made my blood freeze. The soft scrape of metal against metal. Someone was trying to fit a key into my lock. I backed away from the door, grabbing my phone. Should I call 911? What would I tell them? That someone was trying to use a key on my apartment. For all I knew, it could be the super dealing with some late-night emergency. But then I remembered the voice. "He has a key." The scraping stopped. Footsteps moved away from my door, but I could hear them pacing in the hallway, back and forth, like someone trying to decide what to do next. I spent the rest of the night sitting in my bathroom with the door locked, clutching a kitchen knife. The footsteps continued until dawn, then finally faded away. The next morning, I called my landlord. "Did you give anyone a spare key to my apartment?" I asked. "Only the super has one," he said. "Why? Is there a problem?" "Someone was trying to get in last night." "That's impossible. The super was in Queens visiting his sister. I can give you his number if you want to confirm." I took the number, but I didn't need to call. I already knew what he'd tell me. That afternoon, I couldn't concentrate on work. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound made me jump. I kept thinking about that phone call, my own voice warning me. How was that possible? Around 5 p.m., I was adjusting my desk lamp when I felt something odd. A small bump under the lampshade that shouldn't have been there. I unscrewed the base and found it. A tiny microphone, no bigger than a pill, stuck to the inside of the shade with electrical tape. My hands shook as I examined it. Professional grade, wireless. The kind of thing you'd see in spy movies. Someone had been listening to my calls, my conversations, everything I said in my apartment, but that still didn't explain the voice. I searched every inch of my apartment and found 2 more devices, one behind my headboard, another inside the vent near my desk, all professionally installed, probably while I was out running errands. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Someone had been planning this for weeks, maybe months, watching my routines, learning my schedule, installing surveillance equipment piece by piece. But who and why? I was about to call the police when I noticed something on my laptop. In my video folder, there was a file I didn't recognize. The timestamp showed it was created 3 days ago at 2:17 a.m. I clicked on it with shaking fingers. The video opened to show my apartment, filmed from the angle of my laptop's webcam. I was asleep in bed, completely unaware I was being recorded. But that wasn't the horrifying part. The horrifying part was that my mouth was moving. In the video, I watched myself sleep-talking for nearly 20 minutes. But these weren't normal sleep mumbles. I was having a complete conversation with someone, answering questions I couldn't hear, providing information about my daily routine, my work schedule, when I left the apartment. He comes to the coffee shop every Tuesday. My sleeping self said clearly, orders the same thing. Large coffee, 2 sugars. He knows where I live now. My blood turned to ice. I remembered that Tuesday. A guy at the coffee shop had struck up a conversation, asked about my work, seemed interested in my freelance schedule. Nice enough, kind of cute, but I'd forgotten about him entirely. The video continued. My unconscious self describing my apartment layout, mentioning that I often worked late, that I lived alone. I was giving away every detail that would make me vulnerable, and I had no memory of any of it. The spare key is under the plant. I heard myself say, blue ceramic pot by the door. He can wait until Thursday. I'll be at my sister's place overnight. I ran to my front door. There, next to my apartment number, was a blue ceramic pot with a dying succulent. I'd never seen it before in my life, but somehow I'd known exactly where to look. Under the plant was a key to my apartment. The pieces fell into place with horrible clarity. Someone had been drugging me, probably something in my coffee or food delivery, something that made me compliant and talkative while I slept. They'd been extracting information from me for weeks, learning everything they needed to know to make me completely vulnerable. The microphones weren't just for listening. They were for talking back to me. Someone had been using my own unconscious confessions to create those whisper warnings, playing them back during my Zoom calls through some kind of audio injection. My own subconscious had been trying to warn me. I called the police, but what could I tell them? That I'd been sleep-talking sensitive information to someone who was planning to break into my apartment? They'd think I was having a breakdown. Instead, I packed a bag and left. I'm staying with my sister now, but I can't stop thinking about those recordings. How many were there? What else had I told them while I was unconscious? And here's the part that keeps me awake at night. In that video, right at the end, my sleeping self looked directly into the camera and smiled. Not my smile, someone else's smile, using my face. She's ready now. I said in a voice that was mine, but somehow wasn't. Tomorrow night, 3 a.m., she'll answer the door. The video cut off there. I never went back to that apartment. I found out later that someone had broken the night after I left. They'd trashed the place, looking for something. My laptop was gone, along with my external hard drives and anything else that might contain evidence. The police called it a routine burglary, but I know better. I know they're still out there, probably watching me right now, waiting for me to let my guard down. And the worst part is, I don't know what they want or why they chose me. I just know that sometimes, late at night, I still hear that whisper. Even though I changed apartments, changed my phone number, got a new laptop, I still hear my own voice trying to warn me about something I can't remember. Don't answer the door. But what if, next time, I forget to listen? Look, I need to tell someone this story because I can't sleep anymore. My name's Marcus, I'm 34, and up until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had my life figured out. I've been driving for rideshare apps in Chicago for about 4 years now. Started after I got laid off from my office job and just never left. The money's decent. The hours are flexible, and honestly, I like the anonymity of it. Pick someone up, drop them off, move on. No messy relationships, no office drama. Just me, my Honda Civic, and the road. But something's been happening in my car. Something that's made me question everything I thought I knew about grief, guilt, and what happens when the dead refuse to stay buried. 3 weeks ago, I started seeing things in my rear view mirror. At first, I figured it was just fatigue. You know how it is when you're staring at traffic lights and brake lights for 12 hours straight. Your eyes start playing tricks on you. But this wasn't random shapes or shadows. This was specific, and it's getting worse. I need to start from the beginning, because the only way this makes sense is if you understand how normal everything was before it all went to hell. It was a Tuesday night, around 11 p.m. I just dropped off a fare at Northwestern Memorial. Some guy visiting his dad who'd had surgery. Pretty routine hospital run. Except the passenger was quiet the whole way. Not unusual. People going to hospitals usually are. But when I glanced in my rear view mirror to make sure he was getting his stuff, I saw something that made my blood freeze. There was someone else in the back seat, not the passenger. He was already out, walking toward the hospital entrance. But in the reflection, clear as day, I could see the outline of another person. Pale thin, hunched forward slightly. Just sitting there in the middle seat, facing forward. I whipped around to look directly at the back seat. Nothing. Empty. Just a slightly wrinkled seat covers, and that pine air freshener hanging from a window. I looked back at the mirror. Still there. This misty, translucent figure, like someone had breath on glass and traced a person's silhouette with their finger. My heart was hammering. I rubbed my eyes, figuring it was just exhaustion, maybe some weird trick of the hospital lights reflecting off the windows. When I looked again, it was gone. The drive home was tense. I kept checking the mirror every few seconds, but saw nothing unusual, just regular traffic, regular reflections. By the time I got to my apartment, I convinced myself it was nothing. Stress, maybe. I'd been working a lot of double shifts lately, trying to save up for a security deposit on a better place. But the next night, it happened again. This time it was a woman going to Rush University Medical Center. Late night emergency room run. Her kid had fallen off his bike and needed stitches. She was frantic, talking on the phone the whole ride, trying to coordinate with her ex-husband about meeting at the hospital. I pulled up to the ER entrance, and as she was getting out, fumbled with her purse and still talking on the phone, I glanced in the mirror to see if she'd left anything behind. There was again, same pale outline, same position in the middle seat, but this time it seemed more solid, more defined. I could make out what looked like hospital clothes. You know, those thin gowns they give patients. And the figure's head was tilted at an odd angle, like they were listening to something. "Excuse me," the woman said, leaning down to my window. "Is someone else in your car?" My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "I thought I saw someone else in the back seat when I was getting out. Is that normal? Do you have another passenger?" I looked in the mirror again. The figure was still there, clearer now. I could see what hair plastered to its scalp and what looked like burns on its arms. "No," I managed to say. "It's just you. Probably just a reflection from the hospital lights." She looked uncertain, glancing back at my car. "Okay, it's just, never mind. Thanks for the ride." As she walked away, I immediately spun around to check the back seat directly. Empty, but when I looked back at the mirror, the figure raised its head slightly, as if it had been watching me turn around. I drove home with my eyes fixed straight ahead, refusing to look in the mirror until I was safely parked in my building's garage. Over the next week, it kept happening. Not every ride, but specifically on hospital runs. And passengers were starting to notice. A guy going to visit his girlfriend at University of Chicago Medicine asked me halfway through the ride if I was giving someone else a ride too. Said he felt like someone was breathing on the back of his neck. An elderly woman I picked up from Mercy Hospital after a chemotherapy session refused to get in the car at all. She took one look at the back seat and said, "There's already someone in there, dear. I'll wait for another ride." But the worst was Sarah, a nurse finishing her shift at St. Mary's. She got in around 6 a.m., exhausted, and immediately started scrolling through her phone. About 5 minutes into the ride, she looked up and said, "Who's that?" "Who's what?" I asked, though my hands were already gripping the steering wheel tighter. "In the back seat. There's someone back there." I glanced in the mirror. The figure was more solid than ever, and for the first time, I could see its face clearly. Gaunt cheeks, closed eyes, burns covering most of the visible skin, and around its wrist, a hospital bracelet. "I don't see anyone." I lied. Sarah turned around to look directly at the back seat, then whipped back toward me. "Are you fucking with me? There's a patient back there. They look really sick. Ma'am, I promise you, there's no one." "Stop the car." "What?" "Stop the fucking car right now." I pulled over on Lakeshore Drive. Sarah practically launched herself out of the vehicle, stumbling onto the sidewalk. She pulled out her phone and started recording. "I want everyone to see this," she said, pointing the camera at my back seat through the window. "There's a hospital patient in this car, and this driver is pretending they're not there. This is not okay." I got out and walked around to where she was standing. Through the window, looking directly at the back seat, there was nothing. Empty seats, Pine air freshener, nothing else. But Sarah was still recording, her face pale. "Oh my God," she whispered. "It's gone. It was just It was just there. She looked at me with this expression I'll never forget. Part fear, part confusion, part accusation. Like maybe I was some kind of sick fuck playing elaborate pranks on people. "I'm reporting this," she said, and called another rideshare. My rating took a hit that week. Several one-star reviews mentioning weird passengers and unsafe conditions. But what scared me wasn't the bad reviews. It was that other people could see it now too. I decided to install a rear-facing dash cam. If something was really there, I needed proof. If I was losing my mind, I needed to know that too. The camera arrived on a Thursday. I installed it that same night, making sure I had a clear view of the entire backseat. The next few days were quiet. No hospital runs, no sightings, no passenger complaints. I started to think maybe whatever was had moved on. Then I got a pickup request from Northwestern Memorial at 2:47 a.m. Emergency room discharge. The passenger was a middle-aged man named Dave who'd been treated for a panic attack. Nice guy, a little shaken up, but grateful for the ride home. Normal conversation about work stress and health scares. Normal ride. I dropped him off at his apartment building in Lincoln Park and was about to head home when I remembered the dash cam. Might as well check the footage, right? See if there was anything unusual. I parked under a streetlight and pulled up the camera app on my phone. The video was crystal clear, much better quality than I'd expected. I could see Dave getting in, setting his discharge papers on the seat beside him, checking his phone. Everything looked normal. But at timestamp 2 hours, 51 minutes, and 33 seconds, something appeared. Not gradually, not shimmering into existence. It was just suddenly there, like someone had turned on a light switch. The figure I'd been seeing in my mirror was now in perfect, undeniable HD. A woman in a hospital gown, her skin mottled with burns, her hair wet and matted against her skull. She was sitting in the middle seat, perfectly still, staring straight ahead. The patient bracelet on her wrist was clearly visible. Dave, completely oblivious, continued scrolling through his phone just 2 feet away from her. I fast-forwarded through the rest of the ride. The figure never moved, never blinked, just sat there like a statue while Dave chatted about his job and his ex-wife. When we reached his apartment and Dave got out, the figure remained in the car for another 37 seconds before vanishing as suddenly as it had appeared. My hands were shaking as I zoomed in on the patient bracelet. The name was partially visible through the burn damage and poor angle, but I could make out enough letters to make my heart stop. Maria Guerrero, my mother's name. I sat in that car for 2 hours, staring at the pause video, zoomed in on that hospital bracelet. Maria Guerrero, the name I hadn't spoken aloud in 2 years. My mom died in a fire at St. Joseph's Hospital in 2022. She'd been there for routine surgery, something with her gallbladder, and was supposed to come home the next day, but there was an electrical fire in the wing where she was recovering. 7 patients died, including her. The official report said it was an accident, faulty wiring in an old building, inadequate sprinkler coverage in that particular section. Most of the patients who died had been sedated and couldn't evacuate in time. I never talked about it, not to friends, not to the grief counsel my insurance covered for 6 sessions, not to anyone. What was there to say? Hospitals are supposed to be safe places. People go there to get better, not to burn to death in their sleep. But seeing her there in my car, wearing that hospital gown with her skin burned and her hair wet from the sprinkler system that activated too late, it broke something in me. I drove home in a daze. I called in sick for the next 3 days, spending most of that time rewatching the footage, trying to find some detail I'd missed, some explanation that didn't involve my dead mother somehow riding around Chicago in my backseat. But when I finally worked up the courage to drive again, things got worse. The figures started appearing even when I didn't have passengers. I'd be driving to pick someone up, completely alone in the car, and I'd check the dash cam later to find her there. Same position, same hospital gown, same burns. But now she was appearing earlier in each ride, staying longer. At first, she'd only show up during the actual rides. Then she started appearing while I was driving to pickups. Then while I was waiting in parking lots between calls. And she was moving closer to the front of the car. In the early footage, she was always in the back row of seats. But gradually, over the course of a week, she moved forward, first to the middle row, then to the seat directly behind me. Last night, I was parked outside a 7-Eleven, taking a break between rides, when I decided to check the live feed from the rear camera. She was there, but not in the back seat. She was in the passenger seat next to me, turned sideways, staring directly at the side of my head. I spun around to look. Nothing. Empty seat. Just my coffee cup and a cup holder and some receipts in the door pocket. But when I looked back at the phone screen, she was still there. And this time, her mouth was moving, like she was trying to say something. I can't drive anymore. I've been sitting in my apartment for 3 days now, afraid to even go near my car, because I know she's in there, waiting for me, getting closer each time. I keep thinking about the last thing she said to me before her surgery. I was rushing to leave, had some work thing I thought was important, and she grabbed my hand and said, "Marcus, promise me something. If anything happens to me, don't blame yourself. Sometimes bad things just happen." But I did blame myself. I blamed myself for not visiting her more when she was sick, for not being there the night of the fire, for not talking about her death, not honoring her memory, not even visiting her grave. Maybe that's why she's there. Maybe she's been trying to tell me something this whole time, and I've been too scared to listen. Or maybe, and this is what keeps me awake at night, maybe she's trying to take me with her. Maybe she's been getting closer and closer because she wants to join her in whatever place people go when they die in hospital fires. I don't know. All I know is that my phone keeps buzzing with ride requests, and I'm too terrified to answer them because I know that if I get back in that car, she'll be waiting for me. And this time, she might not stay in the passenger seat. This time, she might be right behind me, breathing on my neck, whispering whatever it is she's been trying to tell me all along.